Because she's lying to you, and you're letting her. That's what I walked into. Devereaux's voice, low and precise the way it gets when he's furious, carrying from the kitchen through the dining room archway. I'd come downstairs for water. My throat was raw from the cold in the second-floor bedroom, the one with the drafty window that faces the river. And I stopped 3 steps from the bottom of the staircase with my hand on the banister. You don't know that. Mona's voice, careful, diplomatic. I know what I saw. Devereaux again. She flinched when I touched her arm. Not the right, the left. And she hasn't taken that boot off in 9 hours. Silence. The refrigerator hummed. Someone shifted weight on the old kitchen tile, that particular creak near the island that everyone learned to avoid after the first night, because it was loud enough to carry through the floor. I should have walked in. Should have said something sharp and easy. Diffused it the way I've diffused 1,000 arguments between drunk bridesmaids and handsy groomsmen and caterers who ran out of ice. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. Walk into the room. Make it lighter. Move the energy somewhere else. Instead, I stood on the stairs in my socks and listened, because some part of me already knew what Devereaux was talking about, and I wasn't ready to hear it said out loud. Let me back up. The house, this house, 108 Ocean Avenue, the one with the history that everyone knows about and nobody actually believes, belongs to Mona's uncle. He bought it in 2017, got it cheap because of the name, the reputation, the tourists who still drive past and slow down to take photos of a Dutch colonial that looks like every other Dutch colonial on the south shore of Long Island, except for the roofline where the old eye windows used to be. They're rectangular now, have been since the 80s, but you can still see where the curves were if you know what you're looking at. A slight difference in the siding color. 2 pale ovals on the 3rd floor, like somebody tried to erase a face and almost succeeded. Mona's uncle uses it as a rental property. Airbnb. Stay in America's most famous haunted house for $300 a night. He was in Florida when everything started, and Mona had the Lockbox code, and that's the whole reason. That's it. Not fate, not irony, not whatever the podcasts will say if podcasts ever come back. Just Mona had the code, the house was empty, and it was solid. 3 stories, brick and wood frame, finished basement, enclosed porch on the south side, the boathouse on the river, and it was available at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night when the LIE turned into a parking lot of abandoned cars, and the radio started saying words like shelter in place and do not approach. 7 of us made it here. Mona Reyes and her boyfriend Tariq Johnson, Devereaux Oram, his cousin Hyen Tran, Laurel Kim, who works at the same catering company I do, and who I will never forgive for being the one to call me that night, because if she hadn't called, I might have gone east instead of west. And I wouldn't be standing on this staircase right now, listening to someone say what I already know. Keola and me. Sybil. Mona's voice louder now from the kitchen doorway. She'd spotted me on the stairs. Come down here. I went down, bare feet on cold hardwood, then the kitchen tile. Devereaux was leaning against the counter by the stove with his arms crossed, which is his version of screaming. Mona stood near the island. Tariq was at the table with his head in his hands, not asleep, just checked out the way he gets when conflict starts. Hien and Laurel were upstairs. Keola was in the enclosed porch, which is where she'd been sleeping since we got here. What? I said. Not a question. A deflection. Buying time. Devereaux looked at me. He has this way of looking at people like he's giving you exactly one chance to be honest before he stops asking. He used it on Keola for 2 years of marriage before she left him for me. And now he was using it on me. And I hated how effective it still was. Her boot, he said. Left one. She hasn't taken it off since she got here. Not to sleep, not to shower has she showered. She's sweating through her shirt and she won't let anyone near her left side. You see that, right? Tell me you see that. She runs hot. The words came out before I thought about them. Automatic, smoothing. She's always been like that, Dev. You know that. You were married to... Don't. He held up one hand. Don't do the thing where you make it normal. Not tonight. The thing about Devereaux is that he's almost never wrong about people. It's the most annoying quality a person can have, and he has it in abundance. He read Kyola wrong exactly once in his life, thought she was happy when she wasn't. And the overcorrection since then has made him someone who sees every crack in every surface. Always. Immediately. The thing about me is that I knew he wasn't wrong this time either. And I chose to argue anyway, because the alternative was a door I couldn't open yet. She twisted her ankle getting over the median on Sunrise Highway, I said. Remember? The boot is supporting it. She told me. When? Devereaux's voice didn't rise. It never rises. When did she tell you that? Wednesday night, when we got here. It's Saturday, Sybil. That was 4 days ago. A twisted ankle doesn't make you sweat through a thermal shirt. A twisted ankle doesn't make you snap at high end for touching your arm. Mona put her hand on the island counter, palm flat, her settling gesture. Nobody's accusing anyone of anything. We're just noticing, okay? We're noticing, and we want to talk about it before it becomes something we can't talk about. Talk about what? I said. And I heard my own voice go sharp, defensive, ugly in a way I recognized from every fight Kyola and I ever had. What are you actually saying right now? Say it. Devereaux said it. I think she was bitten before she got here. And I think she knows. And I think you know. The kitchen was quiet. The refrigerator cycled off. And the silence was enormous. Outside, somewhere on the river, something splashed, maybe a fish. Maybe not a fish. Impossible to tell anymore. We'd heard things on the water since Thursday. Wet sounds. The slap of something heavy against the pilings under the boathouse. I didn't know, I said. That was true. That was absolutely true on Wednesday night, when Kyola called me from somewhere on Montauk Highway, with her voice shaking, and asked if there was room, if she could come, if I would let her in. And I said yes without hesitating, because she's Kyola, because we were together for 3 years, because even after we broke up 6 months ago, I never stopped being the person who answers when she calls. That's my flaw. That's the thing about me that isn't charming and isn't useful and isn't the fun party version of caring too much. It's the real version, the one that gets people hurt. I didn't know on Wednesday, I said again. But what? Devereaux. But I've been noticing things the last 2 days. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat on the counter, mimicking Mona without meaning to. The boot, the sweating. She won't eat. She barely drinks water. And she won't look at me. Not like before, not the avoiding thing from when we were fighting. She won't look at me like she's afraid of what I'll see. Mona exhaled slowly. Tariq lifted his head from his hands and stared at the table surface like it contained instructions. So what do we do? Tariq, finally. His voice was hoarse. He'd barely spoken in 2 days, not from fear exactly, but from the particular paralysis of someone who processes internally and hasn't finished yet. We check, Devereaux said. We look at her ankle. If it's a sprain, great. If it's... You can't just she's a person, Dev. You can't just demand she's in a house with 6 other people. If she's turning, every hour we wait is an hour we lose. He pushed off the counter. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Either you talk to her, or I do. I'll do it. The words were out before I could think. I'll give me until morning. She's asleep. I need to do this my way. Devereaux looked at Mona. Mona looked at me. Something passed between them, a calculation I wasn't part of, a decision about whether I could be trusted to do the thing I was promising to do. I understood it. I hated it. I understood it. Morning, Mona said. First light. If we don't have an answer by then, we all go in together. I nodded, took my glass of water, walked back through the dining room on legs that felt boneless. The staircase in this house is wide, with a heavy banister that's been refinished twice. The original dark wood, then white paint in the 90s, then stripped back to wood again by Mona's uncle. You can feel the layers under your palm, the slight roughness where the paint didn't fully come off, the smooth spots where someone sanded too aggressively. I stood on the third step and drank my water and tried to make my breathing even. Upstairs, the second floor held 4 of the 5 bedrooms. Hien and Laurel were sharing the back bedroom, the one that faces the street, which we'd decided was safest because you could see anything coming from that direction. Mona and Tariq had the front bedroom overlooking the river. Devereaux was in the smallest room at the end of the hall, barely big enough for a twin bed. My room was the one with the drafty window, middle of the hall, which gave me a sight line to the bathroom and the stairs. Keola was downstairs. She'd insisted on the enclosed porch from the first night, said she liked the cold, liked being able to hear the water. I'd thought it was romantic in a bleak sort of way, the kind of self-dramatizing gesture Keola makes when she's processing something hard, choosing discomfort over warmth, punishing herself a little. I knew that pattern. Now I thought, she chose the room farthest from everyone else. The room with the most exit points. The room where, if something happened to her in the night, she'd have the greatest distance between herself and 6 sleeping people. My water glass was empty. I didn't remember drinking it. The hallway upstairs was dark. We'd been running the house on minimal electricity since Thursday, using only the essential circuits, keeping the lights off after sundown because light drew them. Through the window at the end of the hall, I could see the river, black and flat, and the tree line on the far bank where Massapequa should have had streetlights and didn't. Wednesday night there'd been a glow from that direction, orange and churning. Fire, probably. By Thursday, it was dark. By tonight, nothing. Just the water and the shapes of trees and whatever was moving between them. I went to my room, sat on the bed, did not sleep. Here's what I kept thinking about, in the dark, with the quilt Mona's uncle's Airbnb guests had probably paid $300 a night to sleep under. Keola called me at 8:47 p.m. on Wednesday, November 6th, 3 days before the house. The outbreak was maybe 6 hours old in our area. The first reports came around 2 p.m. The highways started clogging by 4. The National Guard tweets started around 5:30 before Twitter went down entirely. By 8:47 p.m. we were already here, already barricading, already dragging the porch furniture in front of the ground floor windows, and Keola called and said she was alone and scared and on foot and close, maybe 20 minutes away, if she cut through the neighborhoods south of Merrick Road. And I said, come here. I'll unlock the back door. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't ask why she was on foot. I didn't ask about the sound in her breathing, that wetness, that hitch. I heard it, and I filed it away in the same place I file every difficult thing about Keola. The drawer labeled later. The drawer labeled she probably has a good reason. The drawer labeled love means not interrogating. That drawer is why we broke up. That drawer is why we got together in the first place. That drawer is, I think, going to be the thing I carry out of this house when it's over. She arrived around 9:20 p.m. I met her at the back door, the one off the kitchen, that leads to the narrow side yard between the house and the neighbor's fence. She was wearing her green cargo jacket, black jeans, and both boots laced tight. Her hair was down and tangled. She was limping slightly on the left side. "Twisted it," she said before I could ask. "Median on sunrise, barely." I hugged her. She let me, but didn't hug back, arms at her sides, body stiff. I filed that too, later. She's scared. She's exhausted. Later. She wouldn't let me help her take off the jacket. Wouldn't change clothes. Said she was fine. Just needed to sit down. Could she have the porch? She needed air. Everyone was relieved to see her. Mona hugged her. Devereaux nodded from across the room, with that careful distance he maintains. Laurel brought her a bottle of water. Normal. Fine. A scared person arriving at safety. Nothing wrong. That was Wednesday. This was Saturday. 4 days of Keola in the enclosed porch with the door cracked and her boot on, and the sweating and the not eating, and the way she stopped making eye contact with anyone around Thursday afternoon. 4 days of me saying she runs hot and she's processing and give her space to anyone who raised a question. 4 days of that drawer getting fuller and heavier and harder to keep shut. I sat on the bed and looked at the dark ceiling and thought, morning. First light. I have until then. The house was quiet. Or not quiet. Never quiet, not anymore. The structure creaked in the cold. The river made its sounds. And underneath that, if you listened, there was always something else. A rhythm that wasn't the water and wasn't the wind and wasn't the house settling. Something on the pilings. Something patient. We'd seen them on Thursday morning, 2 figures on the far bank, standing in the shallow water at the river's edge. Not moving, just standing, facing our direction. They stayed there for 6 hours before they eventually waded into deeper water and disappeared. Whether they went under or just moved downstream, we didn't know. Since then, we'd kept the boathouse locked and stayed away from the ground floor windows facing the water. I checked my phone. Dead had been since Friday morning when the last tower went down. Force of habit. The screen was black and stayed black, and I put it on the nightstand and thought, get up, go downstairs, look at her ankle. I didn't move. This is the part I need to be honest about, even though being honest makes me look worse than anything else I've done. I didn't go downstairs right away. I lay on that bed for 45 minutes watching the ceiling beams in the dark and running scenarios. If it's a bite, how long? How far along? What are the stages? We'd seen the videos before the internet died. We'd heard the descriptions on the radio before the radio became static. Early stage, fever, sweating, light sensitivity. Middle stage, aggression, loss of fine motor control, reduced speech. Late stage, you don't come back from late stage. Keola had been in this house for 4 days. If she was bitten before she arrived Wednesday night, that was 90+ hours. Everything we'd heard suggested the turn happened somewhere between 24 and 72 hours after exposure, which meant either she was something that should have already turned and hadn't, or whatever she was hiding was newer than I thought. Like maybe she'd been bitten more recently. Like maybe something had gotten to her here. Through the porch. Through a gap we hadn't seen. Or it was a sprained ankle and a flu and the stress of the apocalypse. And I was lying in bed, building a case against someone I loved, based on 4 days of anxiety and Devereaux's paranoia. Get up, go look. I got up. The house at night, moving through it without lights, was a geography of memorized obstacles. Second floor hallway. The small table with the fake flowers at the top of the stairs. The bathroom door that swings open if you don't latch it. The creaky board 2 feet from Devereaux's door. First floor. The dining room chairs pushed against the wall. The rug that bunches near the kitchen threshold. I moved through it in my socks with my hand trailing the wall, breathing through my mouth, listening. The enclosed porch was at the south end of the ground floor, accessible through a windowed door off the living room. We'd covered those windows, all the ground floor windows, with blankets and cardboard from the recycling pile in the garage. The porch itself still had its original windows, floor to ceiling on 3 sides, but they were smaller panes, and the enclosed structure was set back from the main exterior. We'd debated covering those too, but decided the sightlines were worth the risk. You could see the boathouse, the dock, and 20 feet of river from the porch. The door to the porch was closed. I put my hand on the knob. Listened. Breathing. Slow, heavy, with a quality I didn't want to name. Not a snore Keola doesn't snore. Something wetter. Something that reminded me of the sound she'd made on the phone Wednesday night. That hitch, that thickness. I opened the door. The porch was cold. November on Long Island. No heat running to this extension. The single-pane windows radiating chill from the river. Keola was on the couch, Mona's uncle's ugly floral Airbnb couch, pushed against the interior wall. She was on her side, facing away from me, still in her cargo jacket, both boots on, blanket pulled up to her shoulders. I stood over her and watched her breathe for a full minute. In, out, in, out. That wet quality on every exhale. Her skin, what I could see of it, her neck, her jaw, had a sheen that wasn't right. Not normal sweat. Something about the color underneath. Grayish, maybe. In this light, no light, really. Just the ambient glow from the river, I couldn't be sure. My hand was shaking when I reached for the blanket. I pinched the edge between my thumb and forefinger and lifted, slowly, pulling it down off her shoulder. She didn't stir. Her breathing didn't change. The jacket was unzipped. She must have loosened it in her sleep. Underneath, she was wearing a long-sleeved thermal, dark-colored, and even in the near dark I could see the sweat stains at her collar and underarms. Heavy. Old. I reached for the hem of the thermal on her left side. My fingers touched the fabric and she twitched a whole-body jerk like a shock, and I froze. But she didn't wake, settled back into that heavy breathing. I waited 10 seconds, 15. Then I lifted the hem. The bandage was around her ribs on the left side. White gauze wrapped tight, stained through with something dark, not fresh blood. Something dried and yellowed and crusted at the edges. The kind of stain that meant days, not hours. The gauze was layered, maybe 4 wraps, and whoever had applied it knew what they were doing. Clean edges, even tension. Keola was a former lifeguard. She knew how to wrap a wound. I didn't pull the gauze away. I didn't need to. The shape was there under the wrappings, swollen, raised, the skin around the edges of the bandage an angry purple-black that was visible even without good light. Something had bitten through her jacket, through her shirt, into the flesh over her ribs. Something with a mouth wide enough to leave a mark I could trace with my eyes even through the gauze. I dropped the hem, stepped back. My heel hit the edge of the area rug, and I stumbled, caught myself on the porch doorframe, and Keola moved, shifted, made a sound that was almost a word. I left, pulled the door shut behind me as gently as I could, and stood in the living room with my back against the wall and my hand over my mouth and my whole body shaking in a way I couldn't control, not shivering from cold, not adrenaline shaking, but something deeper, something that started in my chest and radiated outward like a pulse. 4 days. She'd been in this house for 4 days with that wound, with that bite, with us. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor with my knees up and my forehead on my kneecaps, and I pressed my hands against my skull. And I thought, why hasn't she turned? Everything said 24 to 72 hours. This was longer. This was much longer. Why was she still here, still breathing, still speaking in short defensive sentences about being fine? Maybe it didn't take in everyone. We'd heard that rumor too before the signals died. Some people lasted longer. Some people carried it slow. But they all turned eventually. Every single one. I lifted my head. The house was dark around me. Upstairs, 6 people were sleeping or pretending to sleep. On the porch, behind that closed door, someone I loved was dying by inches and had chosen to die here, with us, with me, without telling me, or without telling me the truth. Maybe she'd tried. Maybe every flinch, every refused touch, every "I'm fine, Sib, leave me alone," was her trying to tell me in the only language she had, left the language of kept distance, of self-quarantine without the word. Morning. First light. Devereaux was going to come downstairs expecting an answer, and I was going to have to give him one. I got up from the floor, went to the kitchen, poured water from the jug we kept on the counter, river water, boiled and filtered through a coffee filter setup Hien had rigged on Thursday. Drank it standing at the sink, looking out the window at nothing, at the dark backyard, at the fence, at the absolute absence of streetlights or porch lights, or any evidence that other humans existed on this block. Then I went upstairs, not to my room, to Devereaux's door. I knocked once, soft. 2 seconds later, the door opened. He hadn't been sleeping either. I looked, I said, his face in the dark hallway, waiting. "It's bad, Dev. She has a bite. On her ribs, left side. Wrapped up, days old, infected or turning. I don't know, but it's real. It's there." He closed his eyes, opened them, nodded once. "What do we do?" I said, and my voice broke on the last word. And I hated that. Hated showing him that. But I couldn't hold it. "We wake everyone up," he said. "Now, before she does." "And then what?" "And then we decide together." He stepped past me into the hallway and knocked on Mona's door, then Hien and Laurel's door, quiet but firm. And within 3 minutes, all 6 of us were in the second-floor hallway, in our sleep clothes and our fear. And Devereaux told them what I'd told him in a voice so level, it sounded like a weather report. And nobody said anything for a long time. It was Laurel who spoke first. "She's been here 4 days. Why hasn't she turned?" "Slow burners," Hien said. He'd been reading the PDF guides that were circulating before the internet went someone's compilation of observed patterns, unverified but consistent enough to scare. Some people take longer, up to 5 or 6 days, but they always turn. Every source says they always turn. So we have what? Hours? A day? Mona's voice was thin but steady. "I don't know." "Devereaux, nobody knows. That's the problem. We could lock the porch." Tariq, from the back of the group, where he leaned against the wall with his arms folded. "From the outside. The door locks from the living room side. We lock it, we barricade it, and we wait." She's not an animal, Tariq. She's a person right now," I started. "For now," he said. "Not cruel, just factual." His face was drawn tight in the way of someone who had already run the math and didn't like the answer, but wasn't going to pretend it away. "What happens when she stops being a person at 3 a.m. and we're all asleep?" "Someone stays up. We do watches. Sybil," Mona, gentle. We've been doing watches. Keola was part of the rotation. She had the 2 to 4 a.m. shift last night. She was walking around this house while we slept. With what she's carrying. The hallway was silent. The house creaked. Somewhere on the river, that patient sound, slap, pause, slap against the boathouse pilings. I put both hands over my face and pressed hard and breathed until my chest stopped hitching. When I dropped my hands, everyone was watching me with the particular careful attention of people who love you and are afraid of what you're going to do next. She chose the porch because she didn't want to hurt us, I said. She's been managing it. Staying away, staying cold. Maybe the cold slows it, I don't know. But she knew, and she stayed away from us on purpose. And she didn't tell us. Devereaux. She let us sleep in a house with her for 4 days without a word. That's not selfless, Sybil. That's selfish. That's risking every person here because she didn't want to be alone. Or because she didn't want us to kill her. My voice was louder than I meant it to be. Because she knows what happens when a group finds out. She's seen the same videos. Somebody gets bitten and the group puts them out or puts them down, and she didn't want that. She wanted more time. Time to what, Devereaux? To be here, with people, with me. The words felt like glass in my throat. She wanted more time to be a person before she wasn't one anymore. And I would have given it to her. If she'd told me, I would have. Would have what? Let her stay. Let her turn in the night 2 rooms from where Mona and Tariq sleep. That's not love, Sybil. Don't tell me what love is. You were married to her for 2 years, and you didn't even notice she was unhappy, so don't. Hey, Mona, both hands up. Stop, both of you. This isn't helping. The hallway was too small for this. 6 people pressed against walls and door frames, half-dressed, scared, angry, and the house enormous and creaking around us. And the person we were talking about 30 feet below us, sleeping or pretending to sleep, with a wound in her side that was going to eat her alive. We lock the porch, Mona said. That's step 1. We lock it from the living room side and we move the bookshelf in front of the door. Then we figure out the rest. And when she wakes up, I said. Mona looked at me with something that might have been pity, or might have been love, or might have just been exhaustion. Then you talk to her, through the door, and we figure it out from there. I nodded. That was all I could do. Nod and follow them downstairs in the dark, and watch Devereaux and Tariq move the heavy bookshelf from the dining room wall across the living room floor to the porch door slowly, carefully, trying not to make sound, trying not to wake her and listen to the soft thud as it settled against the frame, and know that I had just helped lock the woman I still loved behind a door she might never come back through. The bookshelf was solid oak. Mona's uncle had good taste in furniture. It held against the door, with about 3 inches of clearance at the top. You could see over it, if you stood on your toes, see through the glass panes of the porch door to the dark enclosed space beyond. I didn't look. Couldn't yet. Hien produced a flashlight, one of the small tactical ones he'd brought from his car on Wednesday, and swept it briefly across the living room to check the bookshelf placement. Satisfied. Off. We stood in the dark and listened. From the porch, breathing, that same heavy, wet rhythm, unchanged. Everyone back upstairs, Mona said. 2-hour watches. Devereaux and Tariq first, then Hien and Laurel, then Sybil and me. Nobody goes near that door alone. Nobody opens it for any reason. Nobody argued. We went upstairs. I lay on my bed in the room with the drafty window, and I stared at the dark, And I thought about Keola on the porch on the other side of that bookshelf, waking up to find herself locked in, and what that would do to whatever time she had left. And I thought, I brought her here. Whatever happens tonight, I brought her here. The house settled into its night sounds, whined off the river, the slight rattle of the porch windows in their frames, that slap against the pilings. And underneath all of it, barely audible, the sound of Keola breathing in, out, counting down to something none of us could stop. I didn't sleep. Couldn't have even if the situation were different. My body was electric. Every small sound registering like a physical touch. At 1:15 a.m., I heard the bookshelf shift. Just a centimeter, maybe less, the sound of oak dragging on hardwood, barely there. I was on my feet, and at the top of the stairs before I registered moving. Devereaux was already in the living room, standing 6 feet from the bookshelf with his flashlight off, perfectly still. He'd heard it too. "She's awake," he whispered when I reached the bottom of the stairs. From behind the bookshelf, behind the porch door, a sound. Not breathing, not movement. Something between a word and a groan. A vocalization that had shape to it, but not quite language, like someone trying to speak with a mouthful of water. Then clearly, unmistakably, Sib. My name, her voice. Still hers, thick, strange, labored, but hers. "Sybil, I can hear the bookshelf. I know what you did. It's okay. I would have done the same thing." Devereaux put his hand on my arm. Gentle but firm. "Don't go closer." "Keola." My voice came out steadier than I felt. How are you feeling?" A pause. That wet breathing. Then, "Hot, really hot. And my fingers aren't working right. The left ones. Sib, I can't make a fist." "Fine motor control. Middle stage." The PDF said fine motor control was middle stage. "How long?" I said. "How long have you known?" Another pause. Longer. The couch creaked. She was sitting up maybe. Moving. "Wednesday. Before I called you. About 4 hours before." 4 hours. She'd been bitten 4 hours before she called me. And she called me anyway. And I let her in anyway. The math of it settled in my chest like a stone. Where did it happen? Parking lot, behind the Petco on Merrick Road. I was trying to get to my car and it doesn't matter. It got me through my jacket, left side over the ribs. I wrapped it in the bathroom at the Sunoco. Then I called you. "Why?" The word came out harder than I meant. "Why here, Keola? Why would you come here knowing?" "Because I didn't want to die alone in a gas station bathroom." Her voice cracked. Still hers. Still her. "Because I thought maybe it wouldn't take. Some people, they said some people don't turn. I thought maybe I'd be. Everyone turns." Devereaux. Flat. Final. Silence from the porch. Then quietly, "Yeah, I know." The hallway creaked above us. The others were awake and listening. Mona appeared at the top of the stairs, then Hayen, then Laurel. Nobody came all the way down. They stood on the landing like an audience, watching Devereaux and me in the living room, watching the bookshelf, listening to the voice behind it. "Sib." Keola again, softer now. I'm not going to apologize for coming here. I know that's shitty. I know that's selfish. But I needed to be near people. Near you. I thought if it happened, at least you'd know. You'd see it. And you'd." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. The sentence had only one ending, and we all knew what it was. "Keola," I said, "is it getting worse? Right now? Are you?" My vision's going weird on the left side, tunneling, and my teeth hurt. That's new. A sound that might have been a laugh. "My teeth hurt, Sib. What the fuck does that mean?" I looked at Devereaux. His face in the dark was unreadable. "It means we don't have as much time as we thought," he said, not to me. To the room, to the stairs, to everyone. Mona came down the steps. "Keola, are you still yourself? Completely?" "I don't know what that means anymore." Keola's voice. From behind the bookshelf, from behind the door, from the porch where I'd let her sleep for 4 nights because I couldn't say no to her. Could never say no to her. Had never in my life said no to her when it mattered. "I think so. But I'm angry. I'm really, really angry, and I don't know why. Everything is loud. Your voices are, it's like you're all shouting and I want you to stop." Hien. From the stairs. That's consistent with what the guide said. Heightened sensory irritability. Aggression on set. "Don't!" Keola's voice spiked. Loud, sharp, then immediately, lower. "Don't talk about me like I'm a case study. I can hear you, Hien. I'm right here." "Sorry," Hien said. "I'm sorry." The porch door rattled in its frame. Keola had hit it or pushed against it. The bookshelf held, barely moved. But the sound of her palm against that glass, the flat, wet slap of it sent everyone back a step. "I didn't mean to do that," she said immediately. "I'm sorry. I didn't. My hand moved before I—" "It's okay," I said. "It's not." Devereaux. "Sybil, it's not okay. You hear what she's describing. Loss of motor control, involuntary aggression, sensory overload. These are the stages. This is happening." "I know." My voice broke again and I let it. Let them all hear it. "I know, Dev. Give me a minute, please." I went to the bookshelf, put my forehead against the top edge of it, where the 3 inches of gap showed the glass pane of the porch door. Dark on the other side. The smell warm, sour, biological. Not the smell of sickness, the smell of something changing, becoming. "Keola." Barely a whisper. "I'm here." Close. She was right on the other side of the door. Maybe her forehead was against the glass the way mine was against the shelf. 2 inches of oak and glass between us. "Tell me what you want me to do." A long pause. Her breathing, still wet, still labored, but even, controlled. The last of her control, maybe. "I want you to not let me hurt anyone, whatever that takes. And I want Sib. I want you to do it before I'm not here anymore. While I know it's you, okay? Don't let someone else. Don't let Devereaux. You." I pressed my forehead harder against the wood until it hurt. "Okay. Okay." Her voice fading slightly. Moving away from the door, the couch creaked again. "Okay, I'm going to try to sleep. While I still can. Maybe the cold helps. Maybe if I stay cold it—" She didn't finish. Her breathing changed slower, deeper, but with that wet edge that wasn't going away. That was only getting worse. I stepped back from the bookshelf, turned around. 5 faces watching me from various positions in the living room and stairway. Mona had come all the way down and was standing near the dining room archway. Tariq was behind her. Hien and Laurel were on the landing. Devereaux hadn't moved from his position 6 feet from the door. "She asked me to do it," I said. "Before she turns, she asked me." Nobody spoke. Laurel made a small sound, not a word. Just a breath, quick and bitten off. Mona closed her eyes. "The boathouse," Devereaux said. "There's an oar in the boathouse. The heavy one with the flat blade. When it's time." I looked at him. He looked at me. And for the first time in the 3 years since I took Keola from him, since she left him for me, since our friendship with him became this strange, aching, careful thing, I saw something in his face that wasn't resentment or distance or that studied neutrality he wears like armor. I saw grief, real and total and unguarded. He still loved her. Of course he did. You don't stop loving Keola. That's the whole problem. When, I said. Not if, when. When she can't talk anymore, he said. When we hear the speech go. That's the last stage before. I know. I held up my hand. I know. Okay, okay. The house was quiet. The river was not quiet. That slap against the pilings had become something more, a rhythmic knocking, patient and deliberate, that I'd been hearing for 10 minutes without consciously registering it. Devereaux heard it too. His head turned toward the south windows, the ones facing the boathouse. Something's at the pilings, he said. It's been doing that all night, Tariq said, since about 11. I thought it was debris. Debris doesn't knock in rhythm. We all listened. Slap, pause, slap, pause, slap, like a hand testing the wood, finding the hollow places, learning the structure. The boathouse is locked, Mona said, padlocked, and the door from the boathouse to the house is bolted from inside. The water access isn't locked, Devereaux said. The boathouse opens at the water end. Anything that can climb pilings can get inside the boathouse. And from the boathouse to the house, one deadbolt, on a wooden door. He looked at me. If we need the oar, we need to get it before whatever's in the water gets into the boathouse. The room shifted. Something new settling over all of us, a pressure, a compression of time. The outside was closing in at exactly the moment the inside was falling apart, and the margin between them was the width of a deadbolt and a wooden door and whatever hours Keola had left. I moved toward the back hallway, the one that connected the kitchen to the interior boathouse door. Devereaux was behind me. Mona said, "Be careful," and I almost laughed, because what did careful mean anymore? What had careful ever meant when every careful choice I'd made in my life had led me here to this hallway, in this house, at 1:40 a.m. on a Sunday morning in November, walking toward a door with something on the other side of it that I needed and something in the water that might need me first. The boathouse door was at the end of a short hallway past the downstairs bathroom. Heavy wood, original to the house, with a brass deadbolt that Mona's uncle had added. I put my ear against it and listened. Inside, water sounds. The slap of small waves against the interior hull channel where boats were meant to moor. The creak of the overhead beams. And there, a sound like fingernails on wet wood. Slow, searching, methodical. Something was in the boathouse, already inside, already past the water entrance. I looked at Devereaux. He looked at the door. The deadbolt was thrown locked from our side. Whatever was in there, it was contained for now. But the oar was in there too. "Kitchen," he said. "The broom handle, or... That won't work. You know that won't work." He did. A broom handle isn't an oar. The weight is wrong. The reach is wrong. The flat blade is what makes it. "The fireplace poker," Laurel's voice from behind us. She'd followed us down the hall without my noticing. "In the living room. Cast iron. 3 feet long. Heavy." Devereaux nodded. "That'll do." We went back to the living room. Laurel pulled the poker from the set by the hearth. A full set, brass-handled, the kind that comes with a stand and 4 matching pieces. She handed it to me, and the weight of it in my hand was real and cold and final. I was going to kill someone I loved with a fireplace poker from an Airbnb rental. No, not yet. Not now. When the speech goes, when she can't talk, when she's not her anymore. But soon, the clock was running, and I could hear it in every wet breath from the porch and every searching fingernail in the boathouse and every minute that passed, bringing all of us closer to the moment when I would have to do the thing I'd promised to do. The sound from the boathouse stopped at 2:20 a.m. Just stopped. One moment the scratching was there, persistent and awful, and the next it was gone and the silence was worse. Hien pressed his ear against the boathouse door, held up a finger, listened for a full 30 seconds. Then, nothing. Either it got out the waterside or it's waiting. Or it's dead, Tariq offered from the kitchen doorway. They don't die on their own. Devereaux. Always with the correction, always precise, always the one willing to say the thing nobody wanted to hear. It's either gone or still. We left the boathouse door locked and went back to the living room. The bookshelf hadn't moved. From the porch, that breathing, slower now, longer gaps between inhale and exhale. I didn't like the gaps. Gaps meant something was changing in the rhythm, and rhythm was the last thing that felt human about what I was hearing. "I'll take watch," I said. "The rest of you go upstairs." "Not alone," Mona said. "I'll stay with you." "I can do it alone." "I know you can. I'm staying anyway." She sat on the couch across the room from the bookshelf, the big L-shaped sectional that Mona's uncle had bought for the Airbnb guests, and pulled her knees up and wrapped her arms around them. "Go," she said to the others. "Try to sleep. We'll call if anything changes." They went. Devereaux was last pausing at the bottom of the stairs with that look he gives. The one that says, "I'm leaving but I'm not gone." The one that says, "This isn't over." His eyes went to the fireplace poker propped against the wall by my hip. To me. Back to the poker. "Don't hesitate," he said. "When it's time, don't hesitate." "I won't." He went upstairs. Mona and I sat in the dark, and we listened to Kyola breathe, and we didn't speak for a long time. The house did its own talking. The creaks, the settling, the river wind pressing against the windows. Outside, somewhere to the west, a sound like glass breaking. Then nothing. The world coming apart piece by piece while we sat in our little pocket of oak furniture and deadbolts and tried to hold. "Do you remember when she catered that wedding in Montauk?" Mona said finally. Quietly, her voice barely above the breathing from the porch. "The one where she ate all the shrimp." "She ate 43 shrimp," we counted. "She said it wasn't 43. She said it was 30-something. It was 43. Tariq was keeping tally on a napkin." I almost smiled. Almost. My hands were wrapped around the fireplace poker, and my face was doing something that wasn't quite a smile but wasn't quite grief either, somewhere between. The way all feelings had been somewhere between for 4 days. "She was so alive," Mona said. "That's the thing about Kyola, right? She was always the most alive person in any room." "Don't!" My voice came out rougher than I meant. "Don't eulogize her while she's still breathing." "I'm not. I'm just remembering. While I still can. Before." "Before what?" I looked at Mona in the dark. Her face was half visible in the ambient nothing light from the covered windows. "Before she stops being the person who ate 43 shrimp?" Mona didn't answer. From the porch, a sound, not breathing, not a word. Something between a moan, low and long, that rose in pitch and then cut off abruptly. Then silence. Then the breathing resumed, but different. Faster, shallower, rougher. I stood up. The poker was in my hand, and I was standing, and I didn't remember deciding to stand. "Sib?" Keola's voice. From the porch, from behind the door, thin now, reedy, wrong in a way that was new. "Sib, are you there?" "I'm here." I moved to the bookshelf. 3 inches of gap, the glass pane of the door, darkness beyond. "My hands won't. I can't open them. They're stuck. Curled," her voice hitched. "And my jaw feels it's tight, Sib. It's really tight. And my teeth are... I know. I put my free hand on the top of the bookshelf. I know, Keola. I'm here. Is it time? She asked it like she was asking about anything. Like she was asking if the restaurant was closing, if the party was over, if it was time to go. Casual, almost light. The way Keola approached everything hard, with that dark humor, that refusal to be heavy about anything, even this, even now. Not yet, I said. You're still talking. You're still... For how long, though? Not a question, a flat statement. My left eye is gone. Can't see out of it. And I keep wanting to bite down on something. Like my jaw wants to close and I have to keep forcing it open. How long until I can't force it? Mona was behind me, her hand on my shoulder blade. Not pulling me back just there. Present. Do you want... I started. I want to tell you something, Keola said. Faster now, the words running together slightly, like she was racing against the mechanism in her jaw. I knew it was selfish coming here. I knew. I'm not pretending I did a good thing. I did a terrible thing, because I couldn't stand being alone while it happened. And you would have let me stay forever. You would have let me turn right next to you because you can't say no to me. That's not love, Sib. That's a glitch. In you. And I took advantage of it, and I'm sorry. Keola, I'm sorry I called you. I'm sorry I said I was close. I'm sorry I made it sound just like a ride, like a favor, like something small. I knew what I was bringing into this house. I knew since the Sunoco bathroom. I knew when I wrapped it, and I knew when I called, and I knew when you opened that back door. And I came anyway. Silence. Her breathing faster, harsher, with something behind it that sounded like grinding. Teeth. The sound of teeth pressing together involuntarily. And I'm telling you right now, she said. And her voice was dropping, losing its edges, getting thick and dark in a way that wasn't grief but biology. That I love you and I'm sorry and you need to do it before I can't tell you to anymore. Because in about, I don't know, 10 minutes, maybe less, I'm not going to be asking. I'm going to be trying to get through that door. And I don't want you to see that. I don't want the last thing between us to be that. Keola. My voice was gone. Wrecked. Broken open. I can't... Through the door? While you're still... Not through the door. Her voice caught. Steadied. Open the porch window. The one facing the river. The latch is already loose. I'll go out. Down to the dock. You come out from the boathouse side. And we do it outside. Under the sky. Not in this fucking house, Sib. Not in the Amityville house. Give me the goddamn water and the sky. I was crying. I didn't know when I'd started. My face was wet, and my hand on the poker was slippery, and Mona was gripping my shoulder now, really gripping. And behind the door, the sound was changing, the grinding getting louder, the gaps between words stretching, something mechanical overtaking the person in slow, awful waves. Sybil. Mona, close to my ear. Now or not at all. You hear her voice. You hear what's happening. I heard it. The last 10 seconds of that voice breaking apart like a signal at range. The words dissolving into vowels. The vowels dissolving into that wet, grinding sound that was becoming all there was. I'm coming, I said to the door. I'm out the boathouse side. Meet me at the dock. Can you hear me? Keola? The dock, okay? A sound from the porch. Not a word. Something that wanted to be a word and couldn't quite get there. But it had inflection upward, affirmative. A yes that wasn't a yes anymore, but carried the shape of one. The last yes she would ever give me. I turned from the bookshelf. The fireplace poker was in my hand. Mona was right behind me. "The boathouse door," I said. "I need to go through it. Whatever was in there earlier, it stopped. I need to chance it." "I'll go with—" "No, stay here. Watch the porch door. If she comes through the bookshelf instead of the window, if she comes inside—" "She won't." Mona's face was wet too. "She'll go to the dock." She said the dock. Sib, go now." I went. Down the back hallway, past the bathroom, to the boathouse door. The brass deadbolt cold under my thumb. I threw it, pulled the door open. Dark, absolute dark. The interior of the boathouse, a void that smelled like river water and old wood and something else. Something faintly organic, faintly wrong. I had the flashlight Hien had left on the bathroom counter. I clicked it on, swept the space. The boathouse was small, wide enough for one boat, which wasn't there. The hull channel ran down the center, river water lapping gently at the concrete edges, a workbench on the left wall, rope coiled on hooks, life jackets hanging, and the oar leaning against the far wall, heavy-bladed, long-handled, exactly where Devereaux said it would be. No infected. Whatever had been scratching at the interior earlier was gone. Back out the water end. Probably the opening at the far end where boats would enter from the river was open to the night. Just a dark rectangle of water and sky. The pilings framed it like a doorway to nothing. I grabbed the oar. Left the poker leaning against the workbench. The oar was better. Longer reach, heavier blade, more momentum in a swing. I knew this without wanting to know it. My body had been calculating the physics of killing someone for hours without my permission. The side door of the boathouse opened onto the dock. I pushed through it into the November air, cold, sharp, the river right there, 3 feet of weathered planking between me and the black water. The dock ran along the south side of the property, extending maybe 20 feet past the boathouse to a T-shaped platform at the end. Upstream, the glow of nothing where Massapequa should have been. Downstream, nothing either. Just the river and the dark and the sound of the water moving. And at the far end of the dock, coming around the corner of the house from the porch side, a shape. Keola. She was moving wrong. Not walking, not the way people walk, with the alternating swing of arms and the forward lean of intent. This was lateral, hitching, one shoulder leading like something was pulling her from the wrong side. Her head was tilted, her arms, one hung straight at her side, the other was curled against her chest, the hand locked in that fist she'd described. Couldn't open, stuck. She still had both boots on. Keola. I said her name, and she paused, registered it, the head tilted further. The jaw was working, not speaking, just moving, the grinding audible now even from 15 feet away. Then she made a sound. Not her voice, not a word, but the shape of the sound, the cadence was Sib. 2 letters, the ghost of a name carried in a mouth that couldn't form it anymore. I tightened my grip on the oar. The blade was flat and heavy, and the handle was smooth from years of use. My arms knew the mechanics. I'd worked catering setups for 6 years. Hauled tables and coolers and cases of wine up and down worse stairs than this. My body was strong enough. She took a step toward me. The head snapped forward quick, predatory, nothing like the cautious hitching a second ago. The change was instantaneous and total. "I'm sorry," I said. She lunged. I swung the oar. The blade connected with the side of her head, left temple, above the ear, and the sound was terrible. Not a crack. Something softer, wetter, like dropping a melon on concrete. Her body torqued sideways and went down on the dock planking, hard, and the boards shuddered under the impact. And I felt it through my feet, She wasn't down. Was getting up, pushing with that one working arm. The curled hand scrabbling on the wet wood. The jaw still grinding, still working. The sound of teeth on teeth like stones in a polisher. I swung again. Overhead this time, the blade coming down on the back of her skull with my full weight and my full grief and everything I had. The crack this time was real bone, definitive. She went flat, face against the dock. The grinding stopped. I stood over her with the oar raised for a third swing and my whole body vibrating and the river moving black and cold beside us, and Keola's hair spread across the planking, wet with river spray, and something else, and her boots, both boots, still laced tight. The left one that she wouldn't take off, that she kept on for 4 days to hide the swelling in her ankle, where the infection was spreading down from her ribs. Her boots were still, and her hands were still, and her body was still, and she was gone. I lowered the oar. My arms were shaking so badly the blade rattled against the dock. I lowered it until it rested across the planks, and then I sat down. Right there, on the dock, 3 feet from her body, the river lapping at the pilings, and the cold November air cutting through my sweatshirt, and my socks soaked from the dock spray, and Keola dead beside me, and the oar across my knees, and the whole dark weight of it settling. I don't know how long I sat there before Devereaux appeared at the boathouse door. A minute. 5. Time had collapsed into something without measure. He came out onto the dock with the flashlight, and he looked at her, and he looked at me, and he didn't say anything. Just stood there. Then he went back inside, and I heard him say something to the others, low, brief, done. And I heard Mona's voice crack on a single syllable, and someone else, Laurel maybe, saying, oh God, and then quiet. The stars were out. November in Long Island, cold enough for clarity. The light pollution gone with the grid, so the whole sky opened up in a way I'd never seen from this property. The river reflected them, doubling the field, and I sat in the middle of that and held the oar and shook. When Mona came out onto the dock, she didn't speak at first, just sat down beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Her body was warm in a way that mine hadn't been for hours, warm from inside, alive warm, that particular heat of a person whose blood is still working the way it's supposed to. We need to move her, Mona said eventually, softly. Into the boathouse. Not tonight, but before light. Okay. And we need to check the porch, make sure the window is secure, and check the water side of the boathouse. If one got in earlier, another could. Okay. And we need to... She stopped, put her hand on my knee. Sib, you did what she asked. You know that, right? She asked and you did it. I brought her here. The words came out flat. Not dramatic, not performed. Just the fact. The center of it. That's the part that doesn't wash off. She called and I said come. I didn't ask questions. I didn't check. I can't say no to her. Couldn't. And I put everyone in this house at risk for 4 days because I can't say no to her. Mona was quiet for a while. Her hand stayed on my knee. The river moved. The stars didn't. You also saved everyone in this house tonight, she said, because I had to, because my mistake made it necessary. Yeah. Mona didn't argue, didn't soften it, didn't try to make it smaller or easier or less true. That's the thing about Mona, she doesn't lie to you, even when the truth is the worst thing she could offer. Yeah, both things are true. You brought her here, and you also did the thing nobody else could have done. Both of those. Same person. I looked at the oar across my knees. The blade was dark with something I wasn't going to look at closely until daylight forced me to. 43 shrimp, I said. Mona leaned her head against my shoulder. 43 shrimp. We sat. The house was behind us, all 3 stories of it, with its replaced windows and its Airbnb furniture and its history of violence that had nothing to do with us and everything to do with us. The house where people died in 1974. The house where nothing supernatural ever happened, no matter what the books say. The house where 7 people came in on a Wednesday night, and 6 would leave when the sun came up. Just a house. Just a building that happened to be available at the end of the world. From inside, through the boathouse and the hallway and the rooms beyond, the sound of the others moving. Devereaux and Tariq doing something with the porch window, checking it, sealing it, making sure. Hien and Laurel in the kitchen, probably, running water, making that instant coffee that tastes like nothing, but at least means someone is doing something normal. Ordinary sounds, living sounds. The sounds of people who were alive because I did a terrible thing and a necessary thing. And I would have to carry both of those in the same hand for however long this lasted. Sun's in about 3 hours, Mona said. Devereaux says we move at first light. Pack what we can carry. The car's in the garage, his sedan. Enough room for 5 if we're tight. Head east, away from the city. Shelter Island, maybe. Or the ferries. Okay. I looked at the river. Can we stay here until then? Just here. Yeah, Mona pressed closer. Yeah, we can stay. So we stayed. The 2 of us on the dock in the cold with the oar and the body and the river. And the house behind us holding the 4 others alive. Unbitten, scared but whole. And the sky slowly, slowly turning at its eastern edge from black to something less than black. Not color yet. Just the first suggestion that darkness had a limit. That the night was not in fact infinite. That there would come a moment when light returned and showed us what was real. At 4:30 a.m. Devereaux brought us coats and coffee. The coffee was terrible and the coat was Mona's uncle's 2 big, ugly fleece, smell of someone else's life. I drank the coffee and wore the coat and watched the river and waited. At 5:15, the sky was gray. True gray, not the ambient nothing of a city-lit night, but the honest pre-dawn gray that means the sun is coming, whether anyone is ready for it or not. Tariq and Hien came out through the boathouse with a tarp, blue, plastic, from the garage, and they covered Kayola without speaking, and the shape under the blue was small. Smaller than she'd been in life. Smaller than a person who ate 43 shrimp and laughed about it and never once apologized for being too much. They moved her into the boathouse. I heard the door close. Laurel came out onto the dock last, carrying a bag supplies, what we'd take when we left. She set it down near my feet and crouched beside me. Sybil. Her voice was rough from crying or not sleeping or both. Can you stand? We should go soon. In a minute. I looked at her, at Mona beside me, at Devereaux in the boathouse doorway, at Hien and Tariq behind him, faces drawn, exhausted, alive. 5 people. All of them alive because of me and despite me in equal measure. Thank you, Laurel said. And then, carefully, like she'd been thinking about whether to say it, you kept us alive. I almost got us all killed. Both, she said. And then she did something I wasn't expecting. She reached over and took the oar from my lap, gently pulling it away, leaning it against the boathouse wall. My hands felt empty without it. Lighter, like they might float away. You don't need to hold that anymore, she said. I looked at my hands. They were shaking still, or again, fine tremors in the fingers that might never fully stop. I pressed them flat against the dock planking and felt the cold, wet wood and the grain of it, and the reality of a surface that was solid and present and not going anywhere. The river was turning silver with the coming light. Upstream, the shapes of other houses emerging from the dark black outlines first, then gray, then almost color. No lights in any of them, no smoke from chimneys, no sounds of cars or voices or the ordinary commerce of a Saturday morning on the south shore of Long Island. Just the water and the houses and the sky slowly brightening. But the sky was brightening. That was the thing. The sky was doing what it always does, turning from dark to light, from night to day, from impossible to possible, mechanical and indifferent and absolute. And we were here to see it, because I did the worst thing I've ever done with the right timing, and enough love, and a flat-bladed oar that some Airbnb guest probably used for decorative purposes. Devereaux sat down on my other side. The dock groaned under the three of us. Me, Mona, Devereaux, but held. He didn't touch me, didn't speak, just sat with his elbows on his knees and his hands hanging and his face turned toward the water and the growing light. I brought her here, I said. Not to him. Not to anyone in particular. To the river, maybe. To the November air. That's the part that doesn't wash off. I know, Devereaux said. Quiet, without judgment, without absolution. Just acknowledgement. The simplest gift anyone had ever given me. Tariq appeared at the boathouse door. Car's loaded. Garage doors manual, we can lift it quiet. Whenever you're ready. I looked at Mona. She looked at me. I nodded. Getting up from that dock was the hardest physical act of my life. Harder than the swing. Harder than the second swing. Harder than anything. My body had fused with the planking in the cold, and leaving it meant leaving the last place I'd sat with Keola alive, the last geography of her, the last shared surface. But I got up, my knees cracked, my socks squelched. Mona took one elbow, and Devereaux took the other, and they lifted me like it was nothing, like I weighed nothing, like they'd been carrying me for days already. And this was just the most recent version of the same act. We walked back through the boathouse past the blue tarp on the workbench, past the oar leaning against the wall, past the coiled rope and the life jackets and the smell of the river, and through the door and down the hallway and through the kitchen, where Hyen was zipping a bag and Laurel was pulling on her shoes, and the house was still standing, still solid, still exactly what it had always been. Just a house. No ghosts, no curses, no horror except what people bring with them. The garage was on the north side, accessible from the kitchen through a utility closet. Devereaux's sedan was there, a silver Honda, 3 years old, nothing special. Tariq had loaded the trunk while we were on the dock. Water jugs, the first aid kit from the upstairs bathroom, canned food from the pantry, the battery radio that only picked up static but might pick up something else further east. 6 of us would have been tight in this car. 5 was fine. I got in the back seat. Mona beside me, Laurel on the other side. Devereaux driving, Tariq shotgun. The engine started on the first try, and the sound of it was loud and real and wrong in the silence, but also beautiful. A machine working, a system functioning, a thing that could take us away from here. Hien pulled the garage door up by hand, a smooth lift. No chain, barely a sound, and the dawn came in. Gray gold, early November. The neighborhood revealed in full. Other houses, other garages, other driveways, all empty, all silent, all just structures holding nothing that mattered anymore. Devereaux pulled out. The tires crunched on the driveway gravel, a sound so normal, so mundane, that it almost broke me. Ocean Avenue stretched in both directions, empty, the river glinting through the gaps between houses on the south side. He turned east. The last thing I saw through the rear window was the house. 108 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, New York. Dutch colonial, 3 stories. Rectangular windows where the eyes used to be. The boathouse visible behind it, and the dock extending over the silver water, and the tarp I couldn't see from this distance but knew was there. Mona reached across the back seat and took my hand. Her palm was warm and dry and alive. I held on. The road opened ahead of us east, toward the water, toward whatever came next. The radio crackled static. Devereaux accelerated. The sun broke the tree line, and the 5 of us, bruised, grieving, unbitten, together drove into the light.